Recording, guys. Good morning. So we are starting our next day for the revision classes with two projects to be worked on. So in today's class we are going to talk about the shadcn, the library for tailwind. This is library for tailwind, right? Based on tailwind. Now so people says, okay, there is a tailwind already, right? We just use tailwind and create some nice component. For example, if I go to the block here, right, blocks, see, this is the component already created, right? We can easily use it by just opening this code, or maybe just copy this, right? And you can place in your project. Okay, and we will see that. So this the color scheme, you can see the color scheme, right? Because I have used this scheme for my, like I'm the one I'm working on right now, inventory management system, right? So that's why you see this. You can change that theme, right? Go to theme and customize it, right? Basically you can customize. So here are these many different themes. Normally you'll see orange, right? Or maybe blue or yellow or violet. Okay, so you see that's how the theme works, right? Natural, gray, okay, or zinc. It looks almost same, right? Stone, green is different, violet is different. I mean, they are also there. They have some style, right? So we'll see how these themes also work. Okay. So there are a couple of already predefined themes you can use. Even you can define your own theme, right? You can do that. So let's start with so what I said, some people came up with the idea. They said, okay, I will use the tailwind and create some component to be used, ready-made component. But this is basically component with complete code you control, right? It's not like you have to depend on some other library. Okay. If you have this shadcn installed in your system, basically configured in your system, right? So it gives you some structure and the code to be used within your app. Okay, you don't have to download anything from outside, right? It's same like creating your own component for button, for table, for maybe form, for everything, almost everything, right? So the first step is how you can install that. That's the first thing to do. So go to the document installation, right? And we are using Next.js. So there are some libraries. Our case Next.js. So we have installed the Next.js, okay, already. Then always second one, right? Just copy this. We are using npm package manager. Select and go to our project. So I'm gonna open this is what we are working from yesterday, right? So I will just go to the terminal and install, basically run that code, right? npx shadcn ui at the rate latest init, right? Latest init, okay. So you can choose the like style, what kind of style you like to install, right? So maybe default, or I will just select New York. Let's do that. Down arrow key, enter, and maybe slate, gray, zinc, natural, stone, whatever, right? I'll just leave it slate. And css variable, right? Would you like to use css variable? Yes. And it will install few things. Basically it configure few things in our system. So let's see what we get back here, right? In our project main folder, it creates a components folder. Okay, this component, right? It added one folder called components. And then let's see. Yeah, that is all we have, right? And then it went to our global css, right, and added this file. Remember, we had empty study, there was nothing, right? But it added all this now. So there is two things. One is root and one is dark mode, right? So if your if you implement like light and dark mode, for example, what I'm saying is, if you implement this, right, light mode will be like this and dark mode will be like this, right? So in dark mode, the only thing is dot dark will be changed, right? And this whole style will be applied to all your CSS. So you predefine for dark mode and you define for light mode, right? That's the for the light mode. So background will be this color and foreground, card, whatever, right? So it has already predefined CSS. Now, uh, so it's like it's easy to install, apply all these things, right? System you can apply, easily. You can basically use these style also, this component, right, in your project. And you have already predefined CSS, which will use all the classes, right, automatically. So, these are just a variable, right? CSS variables with some properties here, value, right? See, just imagine how light and dark mode work in this way. Now you have to configure the component to use, but for now, at least you understand this, right? When we install shadcn, it will update our global CSS and added the component folder, right? We're done. Now we ready to use what? Any component, right? So what I will use is simple button, okay? So if I said, can you create one component for button, right? What you will do? Okay, go to component. Let me close all this. Go to components, and then here you'll say, okay, this is my component. Maybe we call it, maybe let's say dev component, right? Components, and inside I'm going to create one file, call this component button, right? Dot tsx react arrow function. I'm just creating one simple component, right? And this component is button. Now how I create a button, you guys know that how to create button. So that will be HTML button, right? And then this button can have some text. So now you want to make dynamic, then you have to pass the text here as a child, right? All that things in the TypeScript you have to write. You have to pass the props later when you call this component. So for now I will just simple, like click here, right? Style that button, how you can style. So the padding, right? Padding, maybe padding X, make it maybe 8. Padding Y, make it maybe 6. BZ, make it red, 600, something like that, right? So I did not get this, like some kind of style, right? Like what do you call that? CSS, Delvin suggestion I'm not getting. So easy orange 600. Yeah, it's not working, but let's import this in my page, right? Here I will import button, right? From the component dev component button, okay? And then I can use it somewhere here, button, because I have the text already there, right? In the button, I just call that button for now. Let me run this code and see what happens. So that's how you create any component, right? You can find the nice component or buttons and use that, okay? Or basically you can write some nice CSS for button. So you can see the button here is working, okay? It's working, right? You can click that and go somewhere if you want to add the link. Now, I don't like this button. I want dynamic button, right? So what I will do, I'm going to use the shadcn component. Whatever I need, I'm just going to use it, right? For now, I want to use a button, okay? So copy this. It says just install this button. You're going to have it, right? So install that. When you install shadcn component first time, it will go inside the component and create UI folder for you, and it add the button like this. This is the button now, right? So this is more dynamic button. It has a lot of variants, right? See, Variant props you can pass through here, CVA, right? Class variance authority. This is one of the library used. And then you have the CN to combine different classes, which is already we have in our leave here, okay, in the utils, right? You can get that CN. So this function will combine if there are many, just merge different classes, right, together, okay? So that's why this function is used. So that is also used here somewhere. You're gonna find wherever you see CN, right? You're gonna see merging that component. So like for example here, class name is there, then you pass variant, size, add child, you pass all these props, right? Look at here in the class name CN, and the button variants you can pass all the button variants, that is variant, size, classes, class name, right? See all these styles you can pass in one place, okay? So this is more dynamic component, right? The variant means you, in every button you have, right? You have like default, destructive, outline, secondary, ghost, link. You can create your own style also, right? So when I call the variant, I can use either default or destructive or outline or secondary or ghost or link. So let's check now, right? So for now, I'll just delete this button and import the button from shadcn, right? Because now we have installed, you have access to that. Import button, not there, but the UI, this one. And just call that now, right? Button, okay. So this button is dynamic. You can pass this text also, right? So let's call it here add to cart, right? Like that. So let's check the website and you see now it gives you something like this. And because I have the default whatever the the template I have, right, for the color, that's what applied automatically, okay? I can make this, I can change the variant now, right here. So let's make it, so there are all this variant: default, destructive, ghost, link, outline, secondary. I'll just make it this default is the black for now based on my theme, right? Color theme. Destructive will be something like this. Let me minimize and then use side by side so that no need to change. If you want to have just outline, maybe, right, you can just use the outline, right? You can use that, save, and it looks something like this, right? You just want to have a link. It is sometimes you have the linked component or link component from the next link, right? And then you want to put in the button, then in that case you just put link also, and that should work, right? So see, it's like a link. Look at that. It's a button, but it's behave like a link now, right? Okay. So what happened if I change the theme now, right? What's gonna happen? Go back here. Let me change the theme, okay? So I'll just go here, customize theme, and I'm gonna use orange, right? So now I'll just copy the code. I just have to replace everything here. So there is a base and dark, right? Go to my CSS. Let me delete, or let's just leave it, no problem. Go to the CSS and I'll just copy this, right? See how easy to change the theme now. I don't like this theme. I'm just gonna change it with my, I think we're gonna get, yeah, that is fine. I'm gonna need all that, right? So leave it. Just copy and change this part one, okay? This layer, right? Base layer, change it. Now save and go back and check here. See now the thing, the default, basically the basic, right? Like a base is the orange, okay? So even in orange, if I change this to secondary, it looks something like this. If you change this to maybe just leave it no variant, right? Then it will be by default, we have orange theme, so it will be orange, right? No more dark. And see, it's already everything is matching, right? So the form, the button already have a lot of variation. Okay, if you want to use variant, you just look at the code, right? Slowly, when you get more, like in the future, you get more, your skill develop, you can change this theme quickly. Like maybe I can add one more, like a uh, purple, right? And I can define my own CSS. Okay, so I will just change this, like couple of things right here. Let's change this one. I'll leave most of the things same. The text secondary foreground, BG secondary, right? So I'll just make it BG purple, maybe 800. Okay, something like that, and see what happens. So I just have to call purple, right? In purple. Okay, go back now in my here and variant, and just call this purple and save, right? Look at that. So you get that purple. Okay, I know it's not matching, right? I need to change that text color also to white and all that, but you get the idea, right? How this works. Okay, need to change the hover effect and all that. Okay, but if you know how to make something, you can do that easily. The same uh, whole thing will work, right? You just have to configure a couple of things. You can change the size now, right? Even size. So I can go and pass. So these are the, like variant, right? Variance has two property, variant and the size, right? Size, even default variant is here. So that's the default, but you can change according to this, right? So I can make it like icon, right? Size to icon. Go back to my here, and I will just call the next property called size, and that will be icon, right? Let's make it icon and see how it looks. So see, it just looked like an icon. Okay, small icon, right? But if I make it LG, save, and it becomes a little bigger button, right? Good, you get the idea. So also we learn how to change the themes if you have to. The next thing is how you're gonna use, there are so many components built in now, right? Accordion, alert, dialog box, ratio, avatar, anything you need, you just use it, right? So for example, if I want to have a calendar here, this calendar, right? I will just, this is the calendar. For the best way you can install this, just install this. It will add the calendar in your code, right? In your UI calendar. Now to import calendar, just copy and import, right? So I'll just import in this homepage itself, and then something like this have to be done, right? So React use state, date, undefined, new date, right? Yeah. So let's call this. So I have to convert now to this page to the, I'm using the some kind of a React state, use state, right? So this is the client. When you have hook, use client side. Okay, so you can import that here. React.use state. I don't know why it's complaining, right? I put in the wrong place. Look like, yeah, because I must return this calendar. Control X. I don't need this. It must go inside my this home page return, right? Just below the button, I will add padding and just give it maybe, or maybe no need, right? Let's delete that. Or call it calendar, and then below that I will call that component, right? So this component says, okay, here is a calendar. You can make single selected date. So we have the date here now, right? This date we just adding. Unselect set state, right? Set date. You have that. You see how use state work, right? And then you're gonna have class name rounded MD border, right? For this calendar component. Now let's check, see if this is working. Refresh, and we get nothing, right? So there is some issue with the React. Why it's complaining? Let's find out. So it says, let me delete that. React hook, React. Okay, so we cannot call this on the top level, in the top level of component, right? I mean here. So what we can do is, we have about page here, let's use it in that page, right? So that we can go and call it use client, and then React, we can import here use state simply, and then use there, right? You can create separate button component for this and use there. Okay, not a problem. So just copy this whole thing, copy, control X. Okay, I know the problem. Okay, it should work there also, right? I should not be putting that on the top of this component. Okay, it should be inside component when you have this use state, right? Another problem. Okay, this one must be inside the component. You cannot put outside. That was the issue there. Okay, but fine, I just copied, no problem. Now you can bring this up, right? Somebody here. You see, everything looks okay now, no complaint. If you go to the about page, right, you can see that calendar, and you have that calendar here. Okay, you can change, you get all that updated date, right? You can select today, because we have the today date, right, selected here already. Okay, see, things working perfectly. So if you need somewhere calendar, you can easily use, right? So any component here, the form, right? Let's look at the form now. Form and input comes together. So in the form, normally what happens, right? When we have form, we have few things to focus on. Okay, the how we handle our form, right? So see, the normally we use state hooks, and then you read the data, right, of the input fields, and then update your state variable, and then you use that variable, right, to transfer your data to your API. Okay, somewhere in the API, right? But the shadcn form, it says, okay, there will be the form, right, like input fields, or maybe select button or checkbox, whatever, right, from the form. I will put the other stuff like validation, you can add there. You can add React hook form, right, which helps to handle or manage forms, or basically handle the form data, right? React hook form, okay, library. If you have that, we used before React hook form on it, right? This is one library used for form handling, right? So, so this is the form. Okay, you can add validation. I mean, you see the label, there is input, all that things, right? This is one. I mean, if you watch this video, you will get the idea, right? But shadcn say, okay, I will, when you install uh, React hook form, basically when you install this shadcn form, right, you're gonna get all that things back together. Okay, I will show you now what I'm talking about. Let's install this form, right, quickly. So this will be one of the most used component. Okay, I don't know what is happening. Okay, it's installing, right? So when you install form, you're gonna also need to install the. Okay, I click twice, so I don't want to install again, right? I got the form. we're gonna need that input field also. Okay, the input, right? So input here, input is something field like this. So the form don't have that input, so you have to install it separately. Okay, so now let's go back to the form and see how you can use, right? See how the form work, right? Is you start with the form here component. I mean, you're gonna get all that from this basically from the shadcn form now, which we have installed, right? If you look at the form component, it returns everything, you know, like look at here, right? So form items, label, control, descriptions, form message, form field, right? Use form field, form. So this is the one form inside which we wrap everything. Okay, so that is the main component. Like in HTML we have just form, form form. Same thing here, that is the main component or main tag. Then you have form field, right? Form field. Inside form field, this form field has, just start the form field with closing tag here, right? Then you provide the attribute. Okay, these are attribute, right? Like control, name of the form, render, right? In the render it will take callback function. Then the form items, right? One item, the form item has label, form label, right? Then form control, form description, form message, right? See, the form needs a lot of things for the for more interactive, right? Interactivity. So, or you can call it what was the name, like responsive, not responsive, but the, I forgot the form, right? Form should be more dynamic. Form should be yeah, I always forget that name, right? Like in the form should work in any situation, right? So the form always, you know, like need to have some kind of label, some kind of message, some kind of description, you know, all that things. Okay. For example, when you click the form somewhere, right? You see the form is empty. If you don't fill out the forms, it will complain, right? So that message you displaying there already. You add some description about the form. Okay. So see, this is the example, right? Example here. You call the use, basically you call the form from the use form hooks, form field. Then you have just look at the form field, right? Control is there, form that control, username is there, render that field. The callback function that you just pass the field. Now that field has all the data, right? It will grab all the data, okay, in this object. Input placeholder, shadcn, whatever placeholder you can add, just express that field right here. Okay, so when you type something, it will update this field automatically. Control, form description, and all that. Okay, let's I will just show you simple one form, right? How you're gonna handle all that. Okay, let me copy this. So what I'm gonna do is go back to our about page, right? Let's add the form here itself. So I'm gonna import what I have done. We installed the form already, right? So we have to install a few things now. So this is the define a form. How are you going to define the form, right? Always you're going to need these three things. Always, right? So the Zod resolver, because we are using Zod for the validation, right? If you look at now the package JSON, you'll see all that installed already. Okay, we have Zod installed for validation, because once you install form gonna need Zod, right, to validate your data. So already Zod is there. You have the React hook form installed already. These are the two things you're gonna need, right? So you have Zod resolver from the React hook form, because so the resolver means like you're going to create a schema, right? And you want to validate that schema, or digest that schema inside your form, okay? So that your form data is compared with the schema, right? That that handled by this resolver. Use form, React hook form, right? To use your form, and dot to create schema, right? So let's create some schema, simple schema, right? For example, here can do that. So you can create schema in the separate schema folder somewhere, or for now I'll just add here, right? And then import it. So you can create this schema in separate file and import that name, right? The name might be form schema, okay? Just username, right? G is the object from the Jod, and you check this username is a string. It must have 2 characters at least when you fill out, right? If there is empty, then it will give you the message. This message is what displayed in the message component, right? Username must be at least 2 characters. Fine, this is simple schema. Now, I mean, we have the here, right? We have the component already here. What I will do, right? I'll just delete this and just start the form, okay? Or the next idea is just leave it. I'll just put it here, right? Does not matter. I'll just put paragraph below is form, right? Here I will just place the first thing. We have the schema on the top. Now you have to define the first thing you define is form, right? Define that one, okay? This is what you have to define. How are you going to define that? So always will be same concept, right? You define this inside your component. So it's complaining now. Why is complaining, right? See, we are in the return and we cannot do that. We must be on the top level, right? I mean, you define all these things, okay, here before return, right? You define all that. So form, see the form you will use, form you import, right? Use form, and then you have to tell this use form, right, that my schema is this. So g.infer type of schema, right? You have to do that. That is one thing. And then inside the resolver, right? So it will take an object, and first property is resolver, where you can tell Jod resolver and give the schema, form schema, and also the default values of your form, right? So maybe the form has input field like name, email, password, any default value, just put it here. For now, in the beginning, it will be empty, or maybe sometimes you have data, right? When you updating, if you receive the props here, right, like data from the update button click, you can add that data here, data.name or data.username, whatever, right? In case of updates. So whatever you put here will be automatically added to the form, right? So it's giving some error, I don't know why. What is this error, right? Parsing error. So it should not be comma, we have the return here, right? So where I put some kind of, so form, let's see, this is the one, that's fine, and we close that, right? That's okay. So okay, so did not close, right? Did not close this also. That is all we need. So you have this form available. This form has all the information, like how many fields will be there, what type of validation is, all that things you define and store in this variable, right? The next is you're gonna handle the form submit, right? So which is here now. Like when you submit the form, you want to send the data, right? That will be in the second function and submit. When you submit the form, the value will be stored in this value object. You can name it anything, okay? you must check that value, right? Compare with this type is this schema, form schema, which we have defined on the top, and console log. So this value you're going to send to your API, or maybe this server, what do you call that? The server component, right? Okay, so here you handle all your form submission. If you can console log, right? You can do console log. That's it. And the next step is all about creating the form, right? So in the return part, you're going to have all this form. So how you define the form, we talked about that earlier. Here you put it right like that. So you're going to have form inside. You destructure your form. We have get from the use form, right? Use form. This form you just destructure it inside here. Then you call your normal form, which is the normal HTML form, right? Just call that one, and on submit, that form dot, it has a lot of things inside, like handle submit function is already built inside. Just when you handle submit, right, call your on submit function, which we just defined here. That function will take the data, right, and then proceed with everything inside. Okay, form field, now that's it. We talk about form field, that will end here. Now inside the form field, you're going to have control property first, then the name of your field, then there is a render property, right? Inside the render, you have the callback functions, and inside that function, you return like form item. That form item going to have label, then control. Inside the control, you're going to have the whatever, either input or maybe input is text, radio button, password, email, whatever, right? Select options, will everything will go inside the control, right? There is description and there is a message component. Okay, so we need to get all that import from the shadcn, right? So you just import that. These things you have to import it. That will import will always go on the top of your page somewhere here, right? So we have the use form and all that. I think it will complain. We're going to delete it. Oh, we did not copy, right? So fine, save, and now check. So all the error is gone, right? So right now we have only one field, name, right? If you want another field, let's say email, right? I'll just copy this quickly, and just below that, just call it maybe email, and here put your email, right? Here I'll say, email will be displayed in the box, right? So she's complaining there is no email, right, in our validation. So that's why this is your email. Okay, that so let's update our validation, right? Basically schema. Okay, because I have email now, I need to add email field. That will be z dot string, right? Or maybe z dot just, I think there is email also. Okay, let's see what is saying, right? Email does not exist on the type of import, right? So fine, then we just call it a string. Then here dot email, right? Then you're gonna get email, and then you pass the message, right? Like message, you call it email is required, right? Something like good. That's how we define our Jod schema. And once we update our schema, right, then you have to even define here in the default value. So email, now see, it recognized now, right? Email will be empty for now. Good. And the error should be gone now, right? We have the email available, because see, this form know now. Okay, this form's adding this, right, spreading here, it knows how many fields are there. Okay, that has username and email. Good, good, right? So once I submit, console log should give me the email and password, right? Email that name, right? So let's check now. Go back here. So of course, it in the beginning it looks big, right? Let's make it some small. What I'm gonna do is I'll just wrap this in the div. The whole form right here, and I will give some class name. So the class name is basically this has a max width of 600. Let's make it maybe half, right? Like that, because half is the property already there. And mx auto, right? So it will go in the center. Good. So now refresh, and the form should be, let me update now, right? And it did not change. I don't know why. There is username. This is the public description name, right? If I submit, you see that username must be at least 2 character, right? Email is required. Okay, you must have to put something. So the reason it did not work, that's the div, right? Why? So class name, padding of 10. Yeah, it working, and the width, max width of, let's make it something like 80, right? Something like that is working, right? Okay. So, the if you submit here now, right? We're gonna say name and email. If I put email like this, it will complain, right? So just put and submit, and it should in the, if you go back to the inspect, right? Because this client page, okay, so in the console it should give us some data. You see the object it gives back, right? And it has email, username. See, all the information from the form is ready to use now. So that's why we have the server action, right? Function you create to, server action function, you pass that value, right? And that function will, connect with your database, and, like call the Prisma, and Prisma.create. And in the create function, you're going to add all the fields you want to create. I mean, you can even do the validation check there, right? All that. Okay. So that's how things work. So it's very good. Okay. I mean, if you learn, just look for the shadcn something, right, in the YouTube. If you want to have like more go through, right? But just use it. Even that projects, I believe one of the project using shadcn, that will help you, right? It's nice component that will, like make you get some better. So guys, please just work on, right? Just work on the projects, explore it. And if you find some difficulties any point, right, let me know. So shadcn, then Tailwind CSS, Next.js, I think that should be good enough to complete that project, right? Unless they are using some database or something like that, but that should be good enough. Okay, so let me stop here.